I hadn't actually,
Oh, okay.
but I quickly watched it, downloaded it, watched it, and loved it. I think it's quite difficult to make children's films which manage not to be schmaltzy or sentimental or sort of exploitative. It was lovely. Oh, well, I'm the baddie in the second film, and I play this West End theatre actor who was very famous, but now has fallen on hard times and makes a living from doing dog food commercials. Is rather bitter, and it's difficult to describe. But I come into conflict with Paddington. We're after the same thing. In doing my nefarious deeds, I have to disguise myself, and being a sort of narcissistic actor, I'm in love with the characters I've played in the past, and I keep all the costumes in an attic, and I use them. I dress up as those characters to go about looking for this book, which is a sort of treasure map. Well, I must say I wasn't aware of any seriousness, except I suppose you could argue that the Paddington's philosophy of life, which is there in the books, which after all were written in the 50s, of if you're kind and polite, the world will be right. Nothing could sound more facile or trite, but actually it's rather nice and rather useful in today's age. I'm attempting to adopt that philosophy in 2018.
Well, it's lovely. I mean, the bear has been part of my childhood. He's been a friend of mine since childhood, and who would have thought he'd ever end up on the big screen? He certainly didn't. And so it's lovely to have had the success of the first film, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that people will embrace the second one. I think the fun for Paul, our writer-director, was to, now that he knew, or that we knew, and the team who created the bear in post-production, really understand his character and how he ticks, so to speak. And Ben Whishaw's voice is so beautiful and inimitable. So I think the subtlety and the fun are pushed to different extremes. I think the bear seems even more ursine, even more real in the second one, and the adventure that he goes on is even more wonderful and dramatic. Well, Sally Hawkins is a bit of a genius. There's a lot of fingers crossed for her in another film that I'm not going to mention because it's a competitor. No, it's not a competitor, Shape of Water, in which she's fantastic, and also she does some swimming in. So I think it's now in her contract that she brings her own swimsuit, basically, to all her jobs. So to be reunited as a family felt exactly like that, because we had become a good team on the first film. There's always a risk that the children are going to grow up and their voices are going to drop, but luckily Madeline's voice didn't drop, and so she still plays Judy, and we have Samuel playing young Jonathan again, and he can still teach me how to fix things on my smartphone, which of course I could, I'm being a grown-up, I'm incompetent. It was great being back on set, because I can now finally make my Angry Birds work. Yeah, being reunited with Hugh Grant after 20 years was a nightmare. The restraining order had run out of time, and so we'd worked together on Notting Hill, and he was just as miserable and painful to be around as he was 20 years ago. Knuckles McGinty. Well, Knuckles McGinty is played by the absolutely extraordinary Brendan Gleeson, who I think his character just says it all. That, as Paddington says, if you look for the good in people, you might often find it. You look at Brendan Gleeson, you think he's going to smash a face in, but actually he's a cuddly big bear, just like our furry little one.
Absolutely. I mean, he's such a great character. He's a small bear trying to make his way in a big world that sometimes seems a little unfamiliar and a little crazy and a bit sort of scary to him sometimes. But he brings such wonderful value, such warmth and enthusiasm and generosity of spirit and kindness to the world that I think you can't fail but to fall for Paddington. Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, no, sure. I mean, he's such a he's a small bear from the depths of the Amazon jungle, so he really doesn't know how much works, and but he's got a great gung-ho spirit. So he's the sort of bear, if he goes into a bathroom, he will end up flooding the place and riding the bathtub down the stairs. And in this film, we've got some really great moments. He tries to be a barber, and he tries to be a window washer, and he has all sorts of crazy jobs, and things don't always go brilliantly for him, but they tend to work out in the end. Yeah, I mean, we try to make it for everyone. I mean, obviously we want kids to love it, but we try to not make one of those movies where you sort of go, here's a bit for the kids and here's a bit for the grown-ups that maybe the kids get bored in, and here's a bit for the, the kids where the grown-ups are going, this is just another series of, potty humour. So we really tried to make a film that was accessible for everyone. We really wanted to do something in the vein of like a Chaplin movie or something that's just funny across the board. And I love those now as much as I did when I was a kid. And we try to make ourselves laugh, and hopefully we take the world with us.
It's absolutely, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for Paul, I'm thrilled for Simon Farnaby, and for our cast. I'm just one component, and it's just delightful when it's your friends. I've known Paul for over 15 years, and we've always stayed in touch and just adore the way he works, and we write together, and so it just felt like working with your friends, and you have a sort of a code, and you know how each other thinks, and that helps. And I always want to work with my friends because you'll do anything for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't get that. You're not so lucky.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it all the more special. Really special. He's quite an icon. So, and that's quite. To take that on is quite scary, because there's a lot of purists out there who are very protective of that icon and the Michael Bond image. So the fact that we're doing it again is really quite wonderful. And Paul, to make it even better, I don't know how he does that. I don't know how Simon and he does that, but that's the writing. I know, I'm just very proud to be part of it, and yeah, my heart is fit to burst actually, because it's all my friends. So I'm very proud. Yeah, it's he's an icon, and he represents how we all feel, lost and in need of a friend, and the kindness of strangers. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that. And we all feel vulnerable and lost, and we all have our own inner child. And he's a refugee story, and it's very apt for today. It's about seeing that kindness goes a long way, and that if your heart is good, that should be enough. That's both comedy, spy thriller, romance. So that's about 5 movies in itself as well. I don't think it's just an official children's film. I think the classics like E.T., like all great children's film, they don't really fit into that genre. They're for everyone. A great film is a great film, and it has this beautiful, warm wit, and it's not cynical, just embracing of love, and it's joyous, it's witty, and it's funny, and it's visually a delight. And I hope people are moved by it, and that's quite rare, I think.
I did. I played the same role in both these films, Barry the security guard. Yeah, the first film, Paul said, I asked me to help a little bit with some story stuff, and then he said, do you want to play a small role in it, a security guard? And then I immediately beefed the role up to be about from 1 line to 3 pages. But thankfully people thought it was quite funny, so Paul kept me on for the second film. Yeah, so the book has wonderful stories, usually around one thing, like Paddington gets a job in a barber's, or Paddington mows the lawn, and Paddington makes a cake, and they always go disastrously wrong, but have a sort of sunny outcome. He's a very accident-prone, clumsy bear who gets things wrong, but the sun always shines on him anyway. So we take those, read all the books, and then try and weave a grand narrative through it, and give it sort of emotional arcs, and make it a fuller, richer story, which you have to do with an hour and a half, because the books are just sort of 2 or 3 pages. So that's what we tried to do. Yeah, we had this idea for a pop-up book, and then Paul has a very visual imagination, and he said it'd be great if we could make a pop-up book, and then we could push in and we could bring the characters to life. And it's also very reminiscent of, we had a Paddington TV series in the 70s and 80s that was very popular with kids. I used to watch it, and that had that feel. So it was partly cardboard sets, but Paddington was animated, so it has a similar feel, and we thought that sort of combination of that sort of, it suited our story and being a sort of tribute to that TV show and a wonderful visual scene is a great combination. And people seem to really love it. Yeah, it's a great moment. I still don't know how they do it technically, so don't ask me that. They just push buttons and it looks beautiful. It's important, I think, with a family film to think through your message. You know, it is fun, and Paddington shaves someone's hair and gets into prison and gets spun around on he gets into a lot of trouble. But we did feel it was important to have it mean something, and I think Paddington's value system is be kind and polite and the world will be right, and look for the good in people and you'll find it. And we really test those values throughout the film, and in the end I think you realise that kindness, it really is if we were all a bit more like Paddington, the world would be a better place.